This documentary is going to blow your mind. I think this is one of the most important documentaries ever made, and it reveals things about the pyramids that you have never heard of before. It will change how you view the pyramids forever. This documentary presents new evidence that was just discovered by a researcher who was investigating the pyramids. The shocking discoveries revealed in this documentary are going to blow your mind. You will never look at the pyramids the same way again after watching this video. The first pyramid was built around 2600 BC for the pharaoh, Khufu. It took an estimated 20 years to complete and stands at over 450 feet tall. The second pyramid was built for Pharaoh Khafre. The third pyramid was built for Pharaoh Mentuhotep. The fourth pyramid is the Bent Pyramid. The fifth pyramid is the Black Pyramid. There are many more pyramids throughout Egypt, but these are the main ones. Most people don't know that there are secret chambers inside the Great Pyramid of Giza that nobody has ever been able to access. One researcher was recently able to use non-invasive techniques to discover some very interesting things. He used muography, which involves using cosmic rays to make images of the inside of the pyramid without actually having to dig any holes or cause any damage. What he found is absolutely incredible and could change our understanding of the pyramids forever. The researcher made a shocking discovery while looking at the second chamber. He found a large void space behind the second chamber. The void is approximately 30 meters long and 6 meters wide. Nobody has ever seen this before, and we don't really know what it means yet. It could be a tunnel leading to another chamber, or it could be something else entirely. But one thing is for sure, it is definitely not natural. This is evidence that there are secret tunnels and chambers inside the Great Pyramid of Giza that we have no knowledge of. There are many other anomalies that have been found on the surface of the pyramids that suggest that there are secret tunnels underneath them. For example, there are strange holes and shafts that have been drilled into the surface of the pyramids. We don't know why these were made or what they were used for, but they are definitely not natural. Some people believe that these holes are evidence that the pyramids were used as tombs for the pharaohs. Others believe that they are evidence of a much more advanced civilization than we previously thought existed. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Researchers have also found that the pyramids are not perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions as previously thought. In fact, the Great Pyramid of Giza is actually slightly misaligned. This suggests that the pyramids were not simply built as tombs, but instead were used for something else entirely. Something very important must have been buried inside the pyramids, because they were clearly very important to the Egyptians. Researchers have also found that the pyramids are not just big piles of rocks, but are actually very precisely engineered structures. The stones that make up the pyramids are incredibly heavy and precise. In fact, each stone is about 2.5 tons, which is about the weight of an elephant. The stones were also cut very precisely and fit together with incredible accuracy. This suggests that the Egyptians were much more advanced than we previously thought. They had very sophisticated tools and techniques that we are only just beginning to understand. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. There is so much that we still don't know about the pyramids, but hopefully this documentary is a sign that we are finally beginning to uncover their secrets. If you're interested in learning more about the pyramids, then check out my other videos about the pyramids. You can click on the link above to learn more. One of the most popular theories about the pyramids is that they are tombs for the pharaohs. This theory is supported by the fact that the pyramids are aligned with the cardinal directions, and that they contain chambers and passageways that could have been used to hold a funeral procession. However, there is no evidence that the pharaohs were actually buried inside the pyramids. In fact, the majority of the pharaohs' remains have never been found. This suggests that the pyramids may have been used for something else entirely. Another popular theory is that the pyramids are evidence of a much more advanced civilization than we previously thought existed. This theory is supported by the fact that the pyramids are incredibly precise and sophisticated structures. The stones that make up the pyramids are incredibly heavy and precise. In fact, each stone is about 2.5 tons, which is about the weight of an elephant. The stones were also cut very precisely and fit together with incredible accuracy. This suggests that the Egyptians were much more advanced than we previously thought. They had very sophisticated tools and techniques that we are only just beginning to understand. The pyramids are also perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions. This suggests that the Egyptians had very sophisticated astronomical knowledge. They knew how to track the stars and planets and use that knowledge to align the pyramids. Another piece of evidence that supports the theory that the pyramids were used for something else entirely is the fact that they are not actually aligned with the true cardinal directions. In fact, the Great Pyramid of Giza is actually slightly misaligned. This suggests that the pyramids were not simply built as tombs, but instead were used for something else entirely. Something very important must have been buried inside the pyramids, because they were clearly very important to the Egyptians. For example, the air shafts in the Great Pyramid of Giza are not aligned with the true cardinal directions. Instead, they are aligned with the cardinal directions of the constellation of Orion. This suggests that the pyramids were used as a kind of astronomical clock or calendar. The Egyptians may have used the pyramids to track the stars and planets and use that knowledge to predict important events such as the annual flooding of the Nile River. Another piece of evidence that supports the theory that the pyramids were used for something else entirely is the fact that there are strange holes and shafts that have been drilled into the surface of the pyramids. We don't know why these were made or what they were used for, but they are definitely not natural. Some people believe that these holes are evidence that the pyramids were used as tombs for the pharaohs. Others believe that they are evidence of a much more advanced civilization than we previously thought existed. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Researchers have also found that the pyramids are not just big piles of rocks, but are actually very precisely engineered structures. The stones that make up the pyramids are incredibly heavy and precise. In fact, each stone is about 2.5 tons, which is about the weight of an elephant. The stones were also cut very precisely and fit together with incredible accuracy. This suggests that the Egyptians were much more advanced than we previously thought. They had very sophisticated tools and techniques that we are only just beginning to understand. If the Egyptians were able to build such a precise and sophisticated structure as the pyramids, then it is likely that they were also able to develop advanced tools and techniques for other things as well. For example, the Egyptians may have had advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. They may have also developed advanced tools and techniques for things like agriculture, medicine, and construction. Another piece of evidence that supports the theory that the Egyptians were more advanced than we previously thought is the fact that they were able to build pyramids all over Egypt. The pyramids were not just built in one place, but all over Egypt. This suggests that the Egyptians had a sophisticated understanding of engineering and mathematics. They knew how to build a stable structure that would not collapse. They also knew how to transport the massive stones that make up the pyramids. Egyptologists have long believed that the pyramids were built as tombs for the pharaohs. However, there is no evidence that the pharaohs were actually buried inside the pyramids. The pyramids may have been used for something else entirely. The Egyptians were much more advanced than we previously thought. They had sophisticated tools and techniques that we are only just beginning to understand. The new evidence presented in this documentary suggests that there are secret tunnels underneath the pyramids. These tunnels have never been discovered before. If you want to learn more about the pyramids, then check out my other videos about the pyramids. You can click on the link above to learn more. It is time to stop acting like an ostrich and bury your head in the sand when it comes to your finances. Take control of your money and start investing today. Click on the link below to get started. Don't wait. Start investing today. The shocking daily routine of a pyramid worker is finally revealed. It was long believed that the pyramids were built by slaves. This seems obvious since who else would have worked on them for over 40 years under such difficult conditions? However, it appears that this may not be the case. Recent studies suggest that the workers who constructed the Great Pyramids were actually volunteers, but their daily routine was still extremely brutal. And now we know exactly what that looked like. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to take a look at the shocking daily routine of a pyramid builder. The discovery of mass graves near the base of the pyramids has led many researchers to believe that the Egyptian pyramids were actually built by slaves. That would make sense, since why else would people spend decades on a project only to be buried at its base afterwards? However, archaeologists have recently uncovered evidence which suggests that the builders of the pyramids were volunteers. It turns out that they were given free food and housing in exchange for their labor. That doesn't sound so bad until you realize that they had to work 12 hours a day with very little rest. It's no secret that building pyramids is hard work. You have to haul huge blocks of stone up a ramp and then put them in place. That takes a lot of effort, especially when you don't have any modern tools or technology. It's no wonder that some of the workers died on the job, and even more died while constructing the ramps needed to build the pyramids in the first place. A new study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science has shed light on the daily routine of these poor souls. Researchers from the University of Vienna analyzed plant pollen trapped in mummies found near the Giza plateau. The results showed that the workers were exposed to high levels of plant pollen while constructing the pyramids, which means they must have been working outside during the day. This also means that they didn't have access to air conditioning or other forms of climate control, which makes sense since this was ancient Egypt. The workers probably started their day at sunrise, just like everyone else in ancient Egypt. At that time, most of the country would be awake and working on various projects. After all, there were many temples and other structures that needed to be built in addition to the pyramids. The workers would grab their tools and head to the construction site. They would probably work on the ramp for most of the day, hauling stones up and down as needed. Sometimes they might work on the pyramid itself, but this was mostly done by specialized teams of masons. Lunch would probably consist of bread, vegetables, and fruit. In fact, archaeologists have found a lot of fruit pits near the construction sites, suggesting that the workers ate a lot of fruit. This is also backed up by the fact that the plant pollen found in the mummies includes a high concentration of fig pollen. Figs are a type of fruit that grow in clusters on trees, so it would have been easy for the workers to pick them as they passed by. After lunch, the workers would probably continue working on the ramp or the pyramid until sunset. At that point, they would be able to go home and relax. However, their day wasn't over yet. The ancient Egyptians kept very busy at night as well. After all, there were no electric lights, so darkness would fall early. Once the moon was out, the workers could resume their labor. This meant that they had to work at night to meet their quotas. It's no wonder that some of the workers died from exhaustion. While it's true that they probably had access to medical care, it wouldn't have been much help even if they did. Ancient Egyptian medicine was not very advanced. If you broke your leg, the doctor would set it and then wrap it up with some leaves. That's about the best case scenario. In most cases, the doctors would just tell you to suck it up and keep working. As you can imagine, the workers probably didn't complain much. After all, they were working on the biggest and most impressive structures ever built up to that point. It would have been an honor to work on the pyramids, even if it meant that you had to work long hours for low pay. And if you weren't paid, the work would have been especially difficult. But these guys were volunteers, so they probably didn't mind working hard. In fact, they might have been proud of their work. Imagine telling your friends that you helped build one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. That's sure to impress them. Plus, the workers probably felt a sense of community with their fellow laborers. They were all in it together, working long hours and putting their bodies on the line. This would have created a strong bond between the workers, one that would last long after the pyramids were finished. But it wasn't just the physical labor that made being a pyramid worker so challenging. There was also the mental toll. The workers had to be extremely precise with their work. If they didn't do their jobs correctly, the entire structure could collapse. This meant that they had to be constantly on guard and always thinking about what they were doing. One mistake could cost the lives of many people. The pyramid builders probably had to solve many complex problems on the job. For example, they had to figure out how to transport the huge blocks of stone from the quarry to the construction site. They also had to develop new techniques in order to lift the stones into place. Without modern technology, the workers had to use their brains in order to complete the pyramids. This required a high level of intelligence, something that most people don't realize about pyramid builders. We tend to think of them as simpletons who were forced into a life of labor. But the truth is that they were some of the smartest people of their time. The pyramid builders had to be able to read blueprints and follow instructions. They also had to communicate effectively with each other in order to coordinate their efforts. Without good communication, the pyramids would never have been built. But it wasn't just the intellectual demands of the job that made it so challenging. The pyramid builders also had to deal with a lot of paperwork. In order to get paid for their work, they needed to keep track of their hours and submit timesheets to their bosses. This would have been extremely tedious, especially since the workers probably didn't have access to basic supplies like pens and paper. They would have had to use clay tablets and reeds, which would have made the job even more frustrating. To add to that, the pyramid builders probably had to deal with a lot of red tape. The ancient Egyptian government was very involved in the construction process. Officials would frequently visit the construction site to inspect the progress and make sure that everything was up to code. This meant that the workers often had to stop what they were doing and wait around for the bureaucrats to arrive. This would have been incredibly annoying, but it was necessary in order to keep the project on track. And let's not forget about the safety hazards. Working on the pyramids was extremely dangerous. The workers were constantly at risk of being crushed to death by falling stones. They also had to deal with poisonous snakes and other animals that lived in the desert. This made every day on the job a gamble, and it's no wonder that many workers died in accidents. When you add up all the long hours, the dangerous working conditions, and the frustrating bureaucracy, it's no wonder that being a pyramid builder was such a challenging job. It took a special kind of person to be able to withstand all of that, and those people were likely volunteers who were passionate about their work. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think of the daily routine of a pyramid worker? Do you think you could handle working those kinds of hours? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.